I think one of the big things that everybody should have discovered this year is that how we live, how we work, how we learn, how we communicate, how we collaborate, where we go buy things, what technologies we use, all of that's changed. I think before we were a condition-led organization. I think we now are a much more ambition-led organization. We're not allowing ourselves to be left in this box. You're thinking about us as printers, and we need to break out of that box. We're interested in later stage commercial opportunities that we can do things together with partners, because not all the smallest people in the world work for HP. So let's go talk to some of these other people. And that's part of what our organization does. But I think the most successful companies won't just simply sell products and services. They're going to all start selling experiences. And it's not just business transactions, it's customer relationships. I think mass personalization in digital manufacturing and health and wellness is going to be a big deal. Personalized medicine's coming. And I think all of these kind of factors are driving HP to go do new things in these areas to take advantage of this personalization. Yes, you can do a lot of that in print, but there's many, many places throughout the big three organizations I talked about where building these experiences will make a big difference in how people perceive HP, its products, and what we're doing in the world. I want to go back to personalization. If you look at things like what Smile Direct Club has done with orthodontics and 3D printing, it's amazing. I mean, we have all these people now who can get a 3D scan of their mouth or get an impression and get a full set of orthodontic pieces and trays that they can use to work on at home, and they can change how their smile looks. This is an amazing kind of thing. Before, you had to go to an office and have someone tweaking your teeth and changing things on a regular basis. And now, in the comfort of your home, you just change out the trays once or twice a week. That's all been made possible because 3D printing and scanning and the personalization at a mass level, thousands and thousands of people are doing this, yet they can scale this for individuals for 7, 12, 10-month program, whatever it happens to be. I think more of this kind of thing is going to be what's going to really change everything in computing, everything with whether it's in automobiles. This level of personalization is going to be happening in massive scale. And because of the way 3D printing works, it's going to be very local. You can do local manufacturing instead of having something made overseas, making a mold for $30,000, whatever it is, and then trying to spread it across lots and lots of people. You now can have the power of one, but do it at a mass scale for many, many people. That's very hard to get your brain around. If I can drop let's say making this up, the 3D printer, you can drop someplace that can make a battery, and I can mass scale print batteries on site instead of having to move caustic chemicals across the world with special kinds of modifications. That can really change how power is moved around, how storage of power will be used, and how you actually use that power. The personalization business, HP is enormously interested in personalizing almost everything you can think of purchasing. And that's a specialty area that I think is going to change how all of this is going to work. If you order a laptop that has an engraving on it that's unique to you, that's one form of personalization. I mentioned Smile Direct. If you're getting teeth from this company to change your teeth, that's very personal, right? If you're in school and you're getting textbooks that are all personalized for you with your name in it, not just at the front, but your lesson plans and everything are specific to you, and that is published specifically for you at scale. That's another kind of personalization. All those areas and places that HP can do something that's specific. Think about all the personal Nike shoes that you see out there that you can go online and you can decide what colors you want to have, what laces, what kind of sole you want, and order it just for you. That's happening now. Well, I think it's very important to get this personalization right. I mentioned in another talk that we're going to have to sell experiences. To sell experiences, they have to be extremely personal. And that means you're getting down to customer relationships. To figure out how to do mass digitization and mass personalization in digital manufacturing. Think about what's going on now with the tests. We're now doing COVID tests. Before, all these tests would get sent centrally to Quest, and you'd wait for your stuff to come back. But now the tests are migrating all the way down to the CVS. You can get the test right there. That requires a level of personalization and work where it's not all going to a central hub and then you're getting responses back. Every single thing at the edge is now being personalized in a way that you can get immediate answers on things as important as this kind of COVID testing. That's happening at the shoe level. It's happening at the drug level. It's happening all over. So yes, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be able to have everything personalized for yourself, not just having your Echo unit play the song that you wanted. And because of AI, it knows certain times of the day to play certain things. It's going to become very robust, and it's going to affect almost every single thing you have right down to your grocery shopping list. Well, I think when you talk about it that way, I don't think it's been massively adopted for home use. I think everyone thought, oh, I can print a coffee cup at home now, or I can print some. They've had these monofilament goo kind of home printers that use the string thing, and they're inexpensive and they're fine, but they're very, very rough. So if we think about it in terms of dot matrix printers and that sort of thing, we go back in history and think HP used to make a laser printer that was 300 DPI. Then they made a 1200 DPI, and then a 1600, and it got finer and finer and finer until finally you couldn't even see the dots that were making up the fonts anymore. So consumer level printers are making very rough pieces. They're fragile. The kinds of printers that are necessary to build airplane parts and engine parts are a completely different thing. We now have metal printers. We have printers that are doing very fine resolution of rocket parts. When you move away from prototyping to final part manufacturing, that changes how manufacturing will be done. I think that to scale up in this kind of area requires much bigger investments, much more expensive investments, and then you have to have these machines in the right places. So I think the workflow, do I have the equivalent of Photoshop for 3D printing? When we first started messing around with pixels years and years ago, people were very happy to do a Gaussian blur with Photoshop on a Macintosh that had a very, very low processing power, and they were very happy with that. And then as the machines became more powerful, more developers wrote applications to take advantage of these things that could do all this processing and color and everything else. It moved further and further towards the edge. I think we're in that nascent stage where we're finding out what can be made, what tools you need to do to make them accurately, because you have to think of all kinds of stuff. Like I printed something, but then when it cools, it shrinks. Is it still the right size? Did I calculate the right size after it shrank to be able to fit into this other thing? All that stuff has to be invented from scratch. Just like we had to invent file formats for video. MPEG-4 didn't just pop out of the oven. There was 50 different file formats for CDs and for Windows and Macs and everything else, real audio. And eventually that became a file format everybody standard on MPEG-4. That took 10 years before that was established. So I think once these things become normalized and the tools know what they're working on and the security problems have been solved, because what you don't want to do is someone scan something very, very important and then they can just counterfeit it, right? So all these kinds of things have to be worked out. And it takes time as you uncover each piece and then you solve the problem. And then you're doing it at a very high level, high volume at scale, and then at a personalization level. That's not something that's going to just show up in your house to start printing shoes. You're in the shoe printing business, you need a different kind of thing for printing the midsoles and the tops and everything else. So I think the adoption has to move away from the kind of mass manufacturing to this customization, and that'll be driven by personalization. Before you had to get on a plane to go anywhere to do anything, it seemed, and now it's very obvious you can do a lot of things. But when it comes to making, let's say, manufacturing, you can't just drop a manufacturing plant where you are. But 3D printing really kind of changes that story. It is possible to print pretty high volume things with one of these miraculous final printing boxes from us or anybody else. The future of work is going to be wherever your office is. A lot of people will be returning to the office. The ability to plug in remotely has to be friction-free and seamless, and there's going to be plenty of opportunities for people to unlock this workspace. I think from a 3D printing perspective and the COVID perspective, what we've discovered is that you can almost work from almost anywhere if you have the right tools around you. So now discovering what those tools have to be and have them work flawlessly, and whether you're far away or near, has to be worked out. And again, startups working on these friction points, whether it's, hey, I'm sitting in front of this machine too long and now I'm really tired. You think about what Zoom does to you. The cognitive load that you have is so high because the lip sync and what you're hearing and what your brain is doing is higher because you're trying to work it out. So you get tired after a whole bunch of Zoom calls. We've got to work on all these things to make this thing more frictionless. And that is going to be part of the outcome of COVID-19 is things that you could let the experience go for in the past is not going to be acceptable any longer. And people are working on that stuff to make it better. I don't like the IoT word because it's just like saying, the internet. It doesn't it means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and it's pretty hard to define. So if we're saying anything that connects to the network, that could be printers, laptops, could be, Nest devices. I think the important part is how do all these devices become smarter? What is this model that's going to fit inside every single device to make your life easier? So you make less decisions, but you make better decisions because of what's in there. How is it taking the data that's in there and providing it to you in a form that you can take some action on versus just giving you a gob of data? Is there enough connectivity to deliver that to you in a meaningful way? And if it's not, can it prune out the parts that aren't as important to give you something you can take action on? If IoT needs AI to give you better answers, then those things have to get less expensive and they have to get smaller to fit into the memory that you've got and the chips that you're given to work with. I think AI is going to have to do several things. I think people are starting to think about in terms of how does AI help people? How does it help the planet? How does it help the community? It's going to start thinking in terms of environmental impact and sustainability. Can AI help us with any of these things, but we couldn't do anything about it because we didn't have enough data to take the kind of actions that's necessary. So I think inside the ecosystems, where and how we work has to change further. It won't be defined by what we're making, but what we make possible. And I think that the AI modeling that people are doing is essential for people to be able to make good decisions in any of these areas, whether it's just hooking up a device to your house or being able to connect into something large that you can get data on to make good decisions. And that could be as simple as saying, hey, which hospital do I go to get a vaccine? I could sure use some AI to tell me where the excess vaccines are today, so I can get in the car and get there in time to catch the last 5 shots that are excess. Any of that stuff is going to happen because someone spent some time doing the right modeling.